Hello and welcome to the Monday morning briefing from Hearts Standard. My name is Joe Sked and I'm joined by my colleague James Kearney to reflect on another win for Hearts, another away win for Hearts at the weekend, this time in the Scottish Premiership, 1-0 over Ross County. So we will discuss elements of the game that it encouraged us, but also can be used for the future. And whether it's the tactical, system wise, game management, or within games. How's it going, James? Before we get into that.
Good. Yeah, I'm just about awake, just about in my bed. I've had my coffee, so I'm just about alive to the world.
And you've rewatched the game for the weekend.
Yes. So that's how I spent my morning. Had a couple of coffees, watched the game back. Bit of a shame about the co-commentator. He wasn't great, to be honest. But apart from that, it was
I've
fine.
heard that. Yeah, that sounds about right. As for that the reason where I'm wearing a hat is my hair is a mess. So apologies if people think, "Oh, why is he wearing hair?" That's weird. That's rude. But that's the reason why. So yeah, James, you watched the game back. You're doing a piece for the site this afternoon on. It was just a dive into the tactical and the stats and doing an analysis piece, and we kind of talked off air before jumping on. You were really impressed with the game management side of things.
Yeah, I think it really was. I should say, obviously, when you watch the game back, you've got the benefit of how the game's going to finish, so that can alter your perspective of it a wee bit. But certainly the second viewing, I felt that it was a lot more controlled and measured than I maybe thought than it was in the first time around. So I think a lot of that, it comes down to the game management. I think a lot of it comes down to Naismith getting quite a few of his big decisions right and understanding what was going on in the game, what they had to change in the game, and then reaping the rewards of that. So I think, straight off the bat, I think we look at the back three, the decision to change the formation is something that Naismith hasn't done very often this season. He's normally quite wedded to his 4-2-3-1. But I think we saw from the last 20 minutes or so against Kilmarnock who play a similar sort of system to County, that it really helped sort of stem the flow when Kelly were building up a bit of momentum in that game, and it helped really sort of the opposition chances dry up. And I think we saw the same thing again against County. I think they barely had a sniff throughout the entire game until like that chance right to death from what was it, Randall or Brophy? I still can't tell.
It was. I'm positive it was Brophy. Yeah. All right. And then, but to be fair, and then I looked at the one of the apps you used to see the stats, and they had it down as Randall. But I thought on for initial view it was Randall, but then Malky Mackay got asked afterwards, and it seemed like it was Brophy.
Right. We'll go with Brophy then. We'll go with Brophy. But as I say, apart from that, it didn't really have much of a sniff. Obviously the first half it was Alex Samuel and Jordan White up front. Again, I think playing with the extra man in the back three just helped really nullify them. And then you saw at halftime, Malky Mackay completely changed up, went for guys with a bit more pace in Simon Murray and Eamon Brophy. And while there were one or two times where they managed to get in behind, and I think both times resulted in them winning a physical duel with Rowles, which isn't great. But aside from that, they didn't really threaten much at all. So I think a lot of that's down to the shape. A lot of that's to do with the fact that County were quite passive out of the ball, particularly when the game was 0-0 anyway. But I think when you watch the game back, what was really apparent was the fact that, and again, the benefit of 2020 hindsight, but when you watch the game, County would press the ball out wide in this kind of wing back areas. So that's where they'd press the ball, but everywhere else, they weren't that fussed about winning the ball back, which meant there was a huge gaping hole in midfield where players were getting time in the ball. So, we saw Shankland dropping a lot deeper in the second half. We saw Vargas drifting into that area, Grant playing that sort of area. And even Denham was getting a lot more further forwards during the second half compared to the first, but just that final ball wasn't quite there. So I think what happened was then, basically Naismith correctly identified that was the area of the park where Hearts were going to get a lot of the ball. And so he brought on Alex Lowry because, that's a kind of player who can really thrive in those kind of areas where he's got a chance to take a touch, get the head up, see what he can do. Obviously, we saw that pay off brilliantly for the goal. But also we need to have a word about the goal scorer, Alan Forrest, who, came on for Offia, who he just wasn't getting forward and offering that threat in behind. Again, kind of similar to the St Mirren game, Hearts were slightly lopsided in the first half. A lot of stuff was going down the left. But the introduction of Forrest completely changed all that. Again, all of a sudden, he's now running at a defender who's not had too much to do the entire game, and all of a sudden he's got Alan Forrest bearing down on him constantly. You can see it from the pass networks and things like that the ball was worked out to Forrest. He was always really high up. So basically in the second half, the two wide players was furthest forward, generally speaking. And then that when they stretched the defence like that, County didn't know how to cope with it. I mean, Alan Forrest had 3 chances within about 10 minutes of coming on. There's that one, the Kingsley ball across the box. He almost gets a foot on. Oh, he does get a foot on it. It's deflected behind. There was that kind of driving cross-come shot thing that he had right before his goal, and then of course an excellent taken goal. So I think that, the goal was the perfect example of what how Hearts could have hurt County. And again, that would have been exactly what Naismith was hoping for, because those were areas of the park where a change was needed, and if a change did come in, I had every chance of opening them up, and then that's exactly what did happen. And then from that point on, I thought Hearts saw the game out really well.
Yeah, it was the first time in a while I just thought Hearts, there was almost a solidity about Hearts, and you kind of trusted them to see the game out, and you weren't overly concerned about a vulnerability, which was a positive. A couple of things to touch on within that was, you saw it I looked at the stats, and Aidan Denham 0 passes into the box, whereas Lowry came on and also on for a lot shorter period, 3 passes into the box, and that was something that we discussed afterwards, where Aidan Denham was a different role for him, and there was more asked of him in an attacking sense, just with the different setup of the midfield. And in terms of the back three, do you see that as a long-term solution, or do you think Naismith's maybe learning that it's or maybe understanding that different formations suit different games?
I think that probably is what we're seeing, because he's spoken a lot about when it comes to team selection. He speaks a lot about the fact that certain players are better suited to certain games, and that's why they're starting or not starting. Mm-hmm. And so I think the obvious thing, I think it's it would be obvious to me that tactically he follows suit with that as well. He feels the same way that certain games are better suited to certain formations. I think certainly the fact that the last 110, 120 minutes or so when Hearts have played with the back three, they've not conceded a goal, they've looked quite solid defensively, their opposition haven't had much of a sniff at all. That will obviously be tempting, knowing that Naismith has that in his arsenal, he's got that in his back pocket if he does need it. But I would still expect it to largely be the 4-2-3-1 that we've seen so far. I think that's ultimately the kind of football that Naismith wants to be playing. I think that's going to be his preferred system. But I think it's nice to have a sort of another option in your back pocket. And, because this squad of players, they are versatile. There's a lot of them that can play in multiple positions, and a lot of them that are happy to change their position or role during a match as well. That they're used to doing that. They've done that a lot under Nielsen previously and under Naismith as well. So I think that we will likely see the team's shape change within games quite a lot, because I think that's been one of the kind of staples of Naismith's time in charge so far. And I think there will be the odd game here and there where the back three is employed, particularly away from home, I suppose. I guess that's what we're seeing. But I think at Tynecastle, where there's more onus to attack, there's more expected of Hearts, I think we're more likely to see the 4-2-3-1, because I think that's a bit more aggressive, and obviously getting an extra attacker in the team as well.
Yeah, that's something that with the back three or the back five, I felt the kind of shape in the personnel, maybe not the shape of the personnel, was maybe a wee bit too safe. Considering the amount of ball that Hearts were going to have at Ross County, a 5, you can see that in the pass map. In the pass network, or the average position maps, where you see a fire's quite deep. Fire's quite deep, and then you had obviously mentioned about Denham. It's not really his role. You probably want someone more attack minded if you're going to play that. But with the back three, I do think at times this season with the back four that when teams have just been got the ball turned over and counter-attacked or played it long to the striker that sometimes Kent and Rolls, even if it's just one striker, have sometimes struggled to deal with. Deal with a strong one. We've seen it at St Mirren with Olasanya, and with the three, they just it gives them just more solidity, more protection, and that's the aspect of the back three I like. But then, going forward, I do think that it can sometimes look a wee bit too safe, a wee bit too defensive. Now, you look at, I kind of wrote about it yesterday afterwards, that Hearts fans kind of have to get used to just seeing teams put a lot of men behind the ball, give Hearts a lot of possession. And the more I thought about it, that when this is a big if, because injury situation over the last couple of years has been frustrating at Hearts. But if you've got everyone fit, then Naismith's got a lot of attacking options to come off the bench. And you just wonder that if teams realise if they're just going to give Hearts the ball, then they are kind of just almost asking to get punished, because you look at if Mackay's fit, and then you got Lowry coming off the bench, Boyce, Shankland, Oda Vargas. There's guys who can create space or find the pass where you think if you're going to give them so much of the ball that they're eventually going to do it. Something that you like see teams against Old Firm is almost like they're set up just waiting to get a goal scored against them.
I think so, but part of that, I think it might be deliberate though, because like we saw against, I think particularly the games against Motherwell and St Mirren, those are both games where Hearts had 60% possession and just couldn't use it whatsoever because they couldn't get the ball forward enough. I think that's one of the big things from Saturday's game, was the fact that Hearts were generally just a lot higher up the park, so that because St Mirren, for instance, St Mirren just basically wouldn't let the defence play out. Whereas Ross County were largely quite happy to do that, actually. So that because of that, all of a sudden your Hearts gain a lot of territory and it becomes harder for County to get in behind. And it also at the same time means that Hearts are a lot more aggressive when they're on the ball. So I think the fact that, again, as I say, I think the fact that it was kind of down to the manner in which County worked off the ball. But, that because Hearts were so much further up the park, they had a lot more threat and looked a lot more defensively solid, particularly with the back three. And I think that, I think there will be opposition teams who have been looking at games from the start of the season and going, oh, great, Hearts, they can get lots of the ball, don't know what to do with it, brilliant. But I think a lot of it's about where they have that ball as well. So, again, I think the last couple of games have gone well because they've had it a lot further forward. They've not been stuck basically on the halfway line. They've been nice to get that extra 10, 15 yards, and that can make a lot of difference.
Yeah, because you look back to, because one thing is it's the last week, it's not been perfect. The performances and aspects of the game, it's not been perfect, and aspects of it been frustrating, but it's compared to what's kind of gone on so far this season, there's been signs of progress and kind of positive elements from performances. But it'd be interesting to see how the team, having had this confidence and been building the play, if they come up against someone like St Mirren who were a lot more aggressive. And for example, if Neuenhoff Neuenhoff was on the ball a lot, and because he was a sitter, if St Mirren if Ross County had pushed Jan Danda on him, or they got their two midfielders and more aggressive and kind of stopping Hearts coming out from the back that way.
No, exactly. Yeah. So again, I think that was part of it. I think the fact that to an extent County let Hearts play, but I think having said that, though, the next 4 games, they're Hearts aren't going to have 60% possession of the ball. The Edinburgh Derby about 50-50. I'd imagine it'll just be, because I don't think either side will get their foot on the ball and actually play a bit. I think we all know what these games are like. So I think that will be kind of up in the air. And obviously the Celtic game, 2 games against Rangers, you'd imagine that the Old Firm will end up having more of the ball in those games. So it will be interesting to see how the team adapt to that new challenge, because obviously most games this season they've had so much of the ball, and now they're going to find themselves in a game where they're going to have a lot less of it, and they might even be themselves having to be a bit reactive. So it will be interesting to see, because as I say, these next few games, it's a completely different challenge to what's come before it. And so it will be fascinating to see how Naismith sets up, what system he goes for, how he wants the team to play, how direct they are, how quickly they want to play on the counter, because that's something that Hearts haven't really had much opportunity to do this season.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be a refreshing change, and I think you can probably take heart from the performance and result against Rosenborg, and
Mm.
aspects of the performance against Palk, where it seemed like, especially the Tynecastle game was a missed opportunity, but seeing it against Rosenborg, where it was a bit more open and frantic, and there's players within that team who will really enjoy that aspect of it, and um, the fact that it will be a bit more of a battle. For example, Cammy Devlin.
Mm.
This weekend's game is a game which suits him, and he's going to be back in training this week. And it's probably sensible that maybe not to risk him against Ross County, keeping him really fresh from the derby. And then it'll be interesting to see how the other players around him, like Van Nieuwenhof, there's a part of me would have played Nieuwenhof in the derby, would have thrown him in as he's kind of first starting the derby, where we're frantic, because he's been quite good at. He's not the quickest, but he's quite good at the way he moves his body, the way he kind of manipulates the ball to create space for himself. But that's all well and good against Kilmarnock and Ross County, but when it comes to a midfield battle against Hibson and Edinburgh Derby, it's a completely different story, where you probably need to play quicker, have your wits about you, play more direct as well.
Yeah, to be fair, I think Nieuwenhof has shown that in the last few games. I think that he's looked quite tight to the ball at his feet. I think he's quite physical as well, which obviously helps in these kind of games. But I mean, to be honest, against County, I was quite impressed with his work off the ball as well, and basically offering defensive cover and behind. So there was twice in the second half where first it was Brophy and then it was Murray. Both of them kind of skipped past Rose on the right and broke forward into like what could have been a very dangerous situation. Both times it was Nieuwenhof that came across to like stick out for a corner with a kind of like a forceful, firm but fair tackle. So I think that I would imagine that because of that could prove useful, particularly against Hibs, where obviously they've got Martin Boyle out wide, who's got that crazy pace where he's going to be getting those gaps. So I think having someone who's able to cover those gaps is really important. So I think it'd be likely. I think we're likely to probably see him hold on to his place. I mean, I wouldn't be 100% surprised if Beningame came in, but as I say, I reckon there was probably only be 2 midfield slots up for grabs, and I think Devlin's nailed on if it's provided he's recovered from his illness. And I think Nieuwenhof, in the last couple of games, he's shown why he deserves to get the nod ahead of Benny. Also, the other fact as well, of course, is Beningame's he's not played that much football recently, and again, it's a big game to go into, and it's going to be a physically demanding game as well. And I wonder if he's not quite there yet. But then Naismith tends to keep us on our toes, so who knows?
Yes, yeah, I know the last few times he's tried to predict a starting 11, I got nowhere near it, or there's been a curveball here or there. So yeah, it'll be interesting. There'll be a lot of talk about Shankland, and these are elements of the game we'll talk about more in the build up or closer to the performance, because we'll have stuff going up on the site over the course of the week, building to the Edinburgh Derby. But looking ahead to Edinburgh, one last question. At the moment, would you go? You mentioned Boyle's pace and the attacking threat. Would you go with a back three against Hibs?
I would be tempted to, I think, just because again that extra solidity that we've seen in the last few games. I don't think we will, though. I think Naismith, it was the fact that it's the derby, Hearts are at home. There will be that demand from the fans to see them playing in the front foot, and I think that is maybe a little bit too passive. So I don't know. I would expect it to be the 4-2-3-1 probably, but I could certainly, like I say, it's a very tempting offer for Naismith to have, knowing that he's got that option where it does seem to just shut the game down as and when required. Or certainly has in the last couple of games. Obviously, Hibs will be a much bigger test. They've got better attacking players. Like you've got guys like Boyle, he's got that scary pace. It's just scary fast. So it will be a different test. But I think that I'd imagine probably the back four. I think there will be that requirement from the fans that they don't just sit off and wait and play reactive stuff. They want to really seize the initiative early on.
Yeah. Well, I'll hold you to that when we're doing our predicted lineups and talking about it on Friday. Looking ahead, the big thing is for Hearts, and this is it's a full week of preparation, and it's a full positive week where they come in. The team will be full of confidence after back-to-back wins. So it's wrote about it in a piece that went on the site yesterday. That's the mood music, the complexion has changed significantly over the last 2 games. I mean, not like I said, not everything's perfect, but there's been positive signs of progress, and that's all. I think probably a lot of Hearts fans wanted were signs that okay, maybe some things are working, and the derby will be massive because if Naismith wins that, it acts as another springboard for the season, and it builds that credit in the bank, which has maybe not been there, or what was there was kind of has been used up. But it's it's going to be a fascinating encounter. We will have a lot of stuff on the site this week. James has got a piece looking back at the Saturday's game coming up today. We will have I think we'll have a piece on Frankie Kent and his impact since coming into the club, and how he's filled the Craig Halkett hole that has been that's not been filled for a while. There will be a piece on how to prepare for a derby that James has done. He spoke to different people involved at Hearts over the years. We've got an exclusive interview with a former Hearts player as well coming up this week, and we'll probably have some analysis as well, looking ahead to the game in terms of what Hearts can expect from him. So be sure to keep an eye on that. All that on heartsstandard.co.uk. You can subscribe for as little as £1 for 6 months. Please do so, and just check us out. But other than that, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for James for joining me. Are you going to say a goodbye?
Oh, bye.